Should be live right now. Sorry for the technical difficulties for all y'all out there. We just started live officially, and I didn't have a link to send to you guys, so I'm gonna resend some of the link and let some people come out in a second. Can you see us live?
Easy for all y'all out there.
Cool.
Okay, here we go. We're starting.
Yeah, it should be good. You see it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There we go. We got people watching.
Okay, cool.
All the way up to 14.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Al Trades in the building, taking Coach's, infamous spot because his ass wants to be at the Niner game. True story, couldn't find any buyers to sell the tickets. So that's why he's stuck going to the Niners game and missing out on the no financial limits week 10. A lot of interesting shit happened today, you'd say, huh, Al?
Well, it's you know what, and it created panic, and understandably so. We don't yet know exactly what was happening or why it was done, and I'm sure that they will make it clear, but unless there's something really, really nefarious going on from Clover's side, which I don't believe is the case at all, this does not seem like a negative thing. So we don't know why it's positive or why it could help, but obviously it's not good for the stock price right now. But yeah, no, I'm not. I need to read more into it.
I mean, obviously speculation at this point, right? We don't have much we can offer, but there is one thing that I want to say that kind of had me feeling some type of way, because my DMs, obviously, I'm sure yours blew up as well with a lot of people concerned. And with CLOV, man, it's been a roller coaster. Let's face it. We had a pretty decent day today, right? We start off, it just kind of slowly chugging upward, couple price targets.
Because that's exactly the price target, right? It went from 8 to 9, so that would have easily made it.
Make it move, right? I mean, we had a $9 price target from JPM. We had a $9 price target upgrade from Credit Suisse. Obviously, again, that's what, in essence, started moving us upward. And then not to mention, we had the DCE double the lives under management projection-wise for 2022 with their Georgia expansion. So there was a lot of news that happened after hours on Friday that carried over on the weekend. A lot of price targets, or 2 price targets to be precise, that came out. And we saw the stock kind of moving in the right direction for the first time in a long time. We all kind of expected this after earnings. Only lost 0.08 cents per share, or 8 cents a share. I was pretty excited about the earnings. I mean, let's kick it off with the earnings call. I mean, obviously, what we heard was the same that everyone else heard. They weren't burning through their cash whatsoever. They're pretty much at the break-even point. And they had some pretty good guidance moving forward for 2022. I mean, fair assessment, right?
Yeah, it's the only metric that they didn't beat on was the adjusted EBITDA. Not even still, it was only by 1.15%. But it's good. And on top of that, they were reaching out to shareholders, and they try to include the Redditors and all that. So then to drop this the way that they did, and I'm going to go into it more when I make a video after I go through the filing, but Andrew and Vivek did put a statement in the filing there, and it's one of those things where if you're not just worried about the short-term gains and the right now, this really doesn't matter much, and it's only going to be good, I think. People are saying my voice is muffled, but it's only going to be good for the long term and for the holding. And it's I don't want to speculate too much until we have an idea of why this offering was done. And at this time, we did see that Chamath and Social Capital wants to buy up to $10 million worth of shares. It said, or it sounds. Yeah, people are saying about my voice. Are you hearing me fine?
I hear you fine, but let me try one thing real quick just to see if I can fix it here. It's gonna look odd for just a second, but bear with me for one moment. Settings. You can continue. They can hear audio at least.
Oh, but yeah, okay, I can see that. Yeah, be right back there. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where you got to give it time. And, I've had people ask me, and the reality is that for anybody that was here for the squeeze, anything like that, that changed dramatically once the Class A float essentially doubled, and now even more so, obviously, right? And it's all with the timing, and when it was in July there, right around the lockup expiry, and then a couple days later, the private investors with the 66 million shares that it converted, and that just it's you know what I mean. It is what it is, but that took away that aspect of it. But if that meant that we needed to weed out everybody that was here just for that, and that thought it was just a pump or whatever, then so be it. I've always said, you know what I mean, what retail does, whether they buy, whether they sell, bad, whatever, it doesn't impact my plan, doesn't impact the stock, because it's such a small percentage of it.
So, I mean, here was my outlook, and the first thing that came to mind for me, because again, you know, we had a nice little rise today, 5 to 8%, I think was the high of the day. And it was actually pretty exciting for me. I was like, all right, cool. You know, we're finally moving along. A lot of people were excited and happy, finally just not getting beat up at that. But what actually got me was after hours, when we obviously saw the fall off hard, and you know, news came out about the public offering. And I think, look, it's pure speculation, but we saw that their financial records from their third quarter earnings was sitting at about 586 million on hand. Surely that's a decent amount of funds to have, you know, resources to have.
You know, when we looked at how much cash they had and all that, the runway was, if I'm not mistaken, for at least another 18 months or so. They had a runway just based on the cash on hand and the assets versus what they were losing. And who knows, maybe they're anticipating bigger than expected losses because of the doubling of DCE, so they would need this to help with that. I'm sure it has to do with expansion. That's why I think it's a little too early to decidedly say it was because of this or that. But obviously, we saw what happened in after hours, right? I'm just looking at the chart right now, and it's what happened was Ace when they did it a few months ago, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And if you saw today, SoFi also had an offering. Virgin Investments sold $300 million worth of shares today. Of space shares as well. So there was a lot with Chamath SPACs today. A lot.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot. I mean, so here's the deal. With speculation, you only have a couple routes to take. You say, okay, DCE, right? Maybe marketing to acquire. Sometimes they have to, you know, make some, acquisitions perhaps, whether it's getting in contact with specific PCPs, primary care physicians, and expanding from that aspect of it. Maybe just in general, like you said, DCE, you got a lot more resources that you're putting up to acquire these new lives under management. But it could also be a possible acquisition just entirely of maybe something that they'd want to purchase moving forward that could kind of correlate with the Clover Assistant, or again, with primary care physicians, maybe a company that's already out that's doing Medicare Advantage that isn't doing very well, maybe a privately owned or that's not public. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go through your mind. The bottom line is it's pure speculation at its finest for us to sit there and give our input on it. It obviously just happened. The news just happened. Wall Street didn't take too kind to it. You saw the stock drop.
But I've seen something pop up. There was actually a healthcare merger today that was terminated about half an hour after the offering. So two companies that I'm going to look into, but I found that very odd, and it was labeled in with in the same industry, obviously, as Clover, and the timing was kind of odd on that. So we'll have to see. But this is too early to speculate. But there's a few things here. Obviously, it could be some sort of acquisition, although that's not a lot of money for an acquisition that might help. You know what I mean? That's something that they maybe, if it was going to bring more revenue right away, they could have done with some of the cash they had on hand. What this could be, we don't know, right? Like Jorge Barreiro, who just started at Deutsche, that could be a big part of the puzzle here. It's not a coincidence that Deutsche is leading this, and right in November when he's starting, right? So, like I said, there's still a lot that's left to be seen, which is why I don't want to speculate until I know more about what's going on. But there is, the reality is that with the banks now be underwriting this when they have to release obviously all the public financial info so that they can do this offering, if everything wasn't above board, I don't believe so. I believe that this is maybe Wall Street starting to turn a little bit, and there's obviously been some conversations that have been had, and I'm telling you, I think that Deutsche leading this now in partnership with, what was it? I think, not Credit Suisse, with another one. Sorry, I saw it. I don't have the headline in front of me now. But Deutsche is part of it there. And
Citibank, I think.
yeah, Citibank and Citigroup. Yeah. Citigroup. That's what it was. And then there's a couple other ones too. But with these two leading it, it just, I don't know. There's pieces of the puzzle that are kind of floating together, but not quite there yet. So
I mean, there's so much weird things that happen. I mean, if you think about it, it's like you got Credit. They come out with an $8 price target a few days prior to earnings, even though they had a tech conference just a few days after earnings. Then after earnings and after the tech conference, they're raising their price target from 8 to 9. I mean, there's a lot of things that we'll never know as retail right away when it happens, but things start to pan out. You said what?
The Credit Suisse, the price target upgrade and downgrade was what, a week and a half apart? Like,
we couldn't get a downgrade. We couldn't get a downgrade or an upgrade the whole quarter after a phenomenal earnings. And then finally, before the next earnings, few days, they come out with an $8 price target, which was like before earnings. I mean, we all were like, why now? Why do this right this moment in time? But then, of course, right afterwards, tech conference happens the next day. What, did the tech conference happen on Thursday?
Yeah, they didn't do actually good on that one. Let's not. I watched that one, and we were watching it with my Discord there, and yeah, that wasn't the best answers there. Let's just say. So it's funny that they got the upgrade from Credit Suisse.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just been a lot of things going on that we obviously just don't know the ins and outs to. But I was thinking about it earlier, and I'm like, all right, so if they get price target upgrades, and then when they do a public offering, did we see what the price was? I saw some speculation about $8.22 a share.
Saying that that they're going to get is, I believe, $288 million for 35 million shares. So that's a maximum of 822. But if you think about it, the price is what, what is it right now? 687 right now, right? So why would you pay 820? Why would you pay 820 for it?
Again, very odd. But we noticed with, Hut, for example, Hut, the mining company, they had a public offering. Their public offering was right around $12 a share, if I'm not mistaken. And they were right around $12 a share. You saw instantly they dropped to about $10.50, $11. And then they made a nice steady push back up to the 15 range for 52-week high on their end. So sometimes an offering is an initial shock when it hits the Wall Street. But then also sometimes you do see not a reversal. I hate to even use that word. It just sounds so gimmicky nowadays. But it does kind of show that maybe this is the corner that's kind of they're turning around. Because depending on what that amount is, I saw speculation about what? Chamath? Again, speculation. Apparently 10 million.
It's in the filing.
It's in the filing. Okay, so
yeah, it's in the filing that Social Capital is interested in buying $10 million worth of shares, which is roughly 1.2, 1.4 million shares. But it says they can buy more, they can buy less, but that's just the initial interest. So, which, if you think about it, right, he already owns the 30.5 million between himself and Social Capital. So just a drop in the bucket for them and for the float, right? But now the short interest is going to drop again. So that's something to take into account. I don't know who's still really watching it. It's been at 11, 12, 13%, right? So it's...
I'll be honest with you. I actually prefer the short interest to deteriorate, because that's where the whole squeeze, and then you have investors that are not investors but traders jumping in just for the squeeze, and then you hear nothing but bickering when it doesn't occur. So truth be told, as an investor, I actually prefer the short interest to kind of dissipate. And, with some of them starting to cover now, I mean, what's the price at? 687? I mean, how many of them can't just cover now and be happy with their gains at this point? So I would expect it to reduce even more until the next run-up.
There's a couple of things that we've seen in the last couple of weeks too, right? Like PNC adding the 6 million shares, Morgan Stanley has 1 million shares, or 800 and something thousand, JP Morgan, Deutsche, we just had Bailey Gifford didn't sell a single one, Vanguard re-added 7.5 million shares. Like, they're not all doing this, and then they were all off the ball and didn't know this was coming. So this is all, I don't know, like I said, imagine this, okay? Imagine you had Clover, and you said, okay, this is a 2, a 5, a 10-year plan, okay? And you didn't look at it for that time, this is all just noise.
Exactly. And I mean, think about the institutional ownership increasing, but short interest in a sense decreasing. I mean, that's what I want. When you're investing in a good company, that's typically what you're going to see. You see a lot of short interest on companies that, in most of the time, are either overpriced and overvalued from a Wall Street standpoint or from a retail standpoint or whatever the common denominator is. But you also see
that's the proof that doesn't always matter.
facts. But you usually see that short interest in companies that are either, overvalued, or there's a rhyme or reason on why they're shorting it to oblivion, and it's because the business model doesn't really make too much sense. I feel like CLOV is kind of proving themselves with each earnings that their business model is starting to make more and more sense. And something you and I both always agreed on with Clover was the path to profitability. And I think we can sincerely say that almost getting to the break-even point.
You brought that up, because here's a big thing. I don't know if you saw that the conference they had with Jonathan Yang from Credit Suisse, but 2 days earlier, they said the most beautiful thing at earnings, which was that by 2022, they were on track to have a defined path to profitability. Okay, that was a beautiful thing that they said. Then Jonathan Yang, to his credit, during that Credit Suisse call, it was about half an hour, 45 minutes, I can't remember. He was asking all the right questions. How long is it going to take you to get to profit? How are you going to get there? All this, all the things that we wanted to hear. And Andrew Toy, basically, 2 days after saying that by 2022, they're going to have the path to profitability, he goes on this call with Jonathan Yang and said, when Jonathan Yang asked him when they're going to be profitable, he's like, we can't give you a timeline, I'm sorry. Do you know what I mean? So it was a little bit of like, well, you just said that 2 days ago. So to see the price target upgrade come today from them was odd. And obviously on the same day.
You almost wonder, though, if the question that the way I interpreted it as is he was asking very specific, like, what's the date? What's the time frame of it? Not so much next year, the year after, the year prior, because in their actual prospectus, it was 2023, similar to DraftKings when they became DraftKings versus DEAC. It takes time for these hyper growths to actually become profitable, no matter what sector you're in, whether it's sports gambling or, in this case, health insurance. So,
right, there is a slight difference there when you think about it. Okay, between them coming out with their prospectus and all that when they're going public and saying we expect to be profitable by 2023. There's a difference between that and being in, let's say, September of 2022 and being like, we're going to be profitable in Q2 of 2023. We're going to be like, you know what I mean? At that point, it is, there's nothing stopping them. Either the revenues or the MCR has gone down, or the revenue has gone up, MCR has gone down, something that leads them to stay here, right? So it's no longer speculation, let's put it that way. And that's a difference that I think would have a big impact on stock price. And it's like I've said a few times in all my videos in the last few months, this might be a case where by the time Clover turns profitable, they're a $7 billion a year revenue company, maybe more. Maybe if that's what it is in 2 years, right, with all the expansion. You've heard me say that I expected dilution at some point, obviously, but I thought because of the cash and the runway, they had at least another year, maybe 18 months. But again, it goes back to that point. We don't know what this offering was about, what the money's for,
So this brings me to the whole concept of our show, no financial limits, right? So obviously we believe that there's no financial limitations in this world we live in. I can't say the U.S. because Al's obviously in Canada, of course. But at the end of the day, we feel there's no financial limits. We just want to make sure that you guys understand that by any means necessary, nothing said on this YouTube channel that we ever have in particular is suggestive. We don't care if you buy, hold, or sell shares of CLOV. We're not giving any financial advice whatsoever. This is just us in our rooms, basically chopping it up with one another to shed some insight on things that we're feeling and encountering. But back to the whole financial aspect of CLOV. In my opinion, you look at their growth so far, 141% year over year in the second quarter, 153% year over year in the third quarter. You look at their actual revenue, steady, over 400 mil a quarter now, and you look at what they're trying to accomplish with Georgia. Huge story in Georgia, because they believe that they're going to double their DCE, the lives under management through DCE, in next year alone. Right? Not including any snippets or tidbits of what they've given us in open enrollment just this quarter. That's occurring right this moment in time. And so if you think about revenue in general, right, you say $7 billion before they could potentially start turning some profits. how far away is that though? Because truth
Well,
be told,
let me ask you this, okay? Let me ask you this based on what you just said there. Just always them in Canada, and it's investing wise, it's, you know what I mean, that's about as far as my extent with Medicare goes. But they originally said they were going to have the 200,000 lives this year. Obviously, weren't able to reach that, and it was just the way that it was worded. I remember we've gone over that, right? Where they said instead of access to, they said they will have this many patients. And that was based on the DCE lives being added. That was part of the Q2 earnings, that when they were added on April 1st, suddenly we had this influx of lives under management, but that wasn't anything that was helping with profits. So now I'm wondering, as an investor, seeing how we've seen the last year play out and what they've said, if when they're saying that their lives under management with the direct contracting are going to double, do they mean they're going to have access to all those extra lives because of the expansion efforts or whatnot? Or do they have some sort of contracts or plan in place to get these PCPs? Because that's how they do it, right? With the DC, they go right to the PCPs and then they get the lives that they manage. Or do they have some plan to do that and then have those numbers added that way? Because last time they said anything with the number, which was 200,000, it was, well, that's how many patients, the PCPs that they have access to manage, right? And then that obviously led to a lot on May 17th. And I believe at that point we went under $7 as well, based on that. So
I mean, here's the deal.
There's a difference there.
Here's the deal, right? I mean, with any investment, this is why I've always, on every single channel I've ever been on, I've always said why diversification is so extremely important as an investor. Because the truth
this doesn't affect the day-to-day, and obviously a lot of people, right, especially because of that hype and everything that went on, like, and how they talk about it in the subreddit and the YOLO and this and that, there's a lot of people who do have a lot in it. And in my opinion, if you look at everything, there's nothing to suggest that this price is going to be suppressed forever, if not quite the contrary. So that's something you got to look at. But it's, I don't know, like, it's I see the offering, and instead of getting upset, I'm curious.
Absolutely agree. I agree. I mean, that's my whole thought process. You know, when I have people reaching out to me and they're frustrated, rightfully so, you got to just kind of scope back. You got to look back at the whole scene. You got to understand what's your intention here.
People want to sink over. People want to go to the SEC about them. Like, all these people that are supposed to be supporters. Like, it's. I don't think there's anything to worry about in that aspect. So let them go ahead. But it's just, it shows you what some people are thinking, and I don't know.
I mean, I think investment-wise, nothing's changed for me from the fundamental aspect of it. I mean, obviously, I'm curious to know what the offering is, but I still don't think there's absolutely nothing from this offering that could potentially steer me into a direction to not be comfortable with what I chose to invest into CLOV. I think that it's easier said than done for most, because when you do put a lot of resources on the line and you do, expect your investment to at least trade sideways, if anything, not downward, with a lot of downward pressure. It's always been something that CLOV's kind of ran into. CLOV is like one of those horses at the horse race that's just so close to turning the corner and pulls up with the cramp, and that's it, right? And there's a lot of people that panic sell every time, and then I see posts that people are coming right back in and riding the wave. And look, I'm excited about the corporation still. I think that there's a rhyme or reason on why this public offering is even being done. Like you said, well, it's not that much money. Well, no, it's not. But at the same token, we don't know how much money they have, the 586 mil or so that they have left over, if they're going to be taking portions of this and on top of the offering to make an acquisition or to have some type of, plan in place that makes so much sense for them. And I'm even more excited now to see, because if I take myself out of the CLOV realm for a moment, I love finding companies that lose 10 to 20% in one day, whether it's after hours or during a regular session intraday, and I swing trade these. I mean, I've been doing this for years, where I go, oh, look at the Wynn Hotel. Looks like Greenwich came in and looks like they lost this and that, and all of a sudden they're sitting here, down 10% today. and I put calls on them. And I waited and I waited, and I always put my calls for a long time frame out, and I scalped the swing trades on them. I scalped my calls on swing trades. So to me, it's like when I step back and I look, I'm like, man, this is such an overreaction at this point, because we don't know if it's an under or overreaction based upon the unknown. So I'm actually kind of excited to wake up this morning and grab some more shares under $7.
I just pulled out the S1 filing from today, and it's funny because they say lovely things like they have to say it, right? But under the, and I'm sure this is what some people saw, but under these circumstances, we caution you against investing in a Class A common stock unless you're prepared to incur the risk of losing all or a substantial portion of your investment, right? So that's scary. But then right above that is when they talk about Chamath and Social Capital maybe wanting to buy up to $10 million worth of shares here. So it's I don't know. I think it's one of those things that is just standard SEC verbiage that can be scary to somebody who's just reading it. But if you go through all of CLOV's competitors, every single one, they all have stuff like that in their filings regarding the risk factors and all that. And we've seen that with all the big ones and some of the smaller ones that are competing. So I'm just trying to get to...
One thing I gotta say I enjoy is the access to how many counties and states that are still available to them. You know, as you grow as a corporation, you don't want to already be in all 50 states and you're just now trying to grow within those states. I mean, we're talking about 39 extra states that they're not even in yet. I mean, you're talking about the access to so many that I just feel like, you know, with DraftKings, it was like each state that became eligible to online sports bet, DraftKings was first in line to open up a online sports bookie. Now I'm looking at CLOV in a very similar way, to where you see legacy players lose policies, they're creating policies the next day. You see that certain states that they're jumping into, it's not just jumping into it, but they're going all in with Georgia, prime example, adding people to the team and really trying to, you know, spread their geographic footprint out. So I'm pretty excited about that, man. I do want to give some shout out to the guests that are here. I know we haven't really touched base on it due to the technical difficulties. We kind of got off to a little bit of a rough start. Appreciate you guys for hanging in there for us.
Here that I found here, the assumed public offering price per share is $7.16.
$7.16.
I'm just looking through the filing right now.
Absolutely.
And that's when they're talking about the dilution.
Absolutely. So we're curious. We're curious to see what's going to take place. And you know, most of the time these public offerings is general business purposes, you know, so you don't really get too much insight. Knowing CLOV, they're probably not going to talk about exactly what they're trying to accomplish with these resources that they're accumulating themselves, because they've been more of a, you know, show you with our actions type of ball players. I know there's some people that are violently upset and, like you said, bringing up some things that they want to do as far as going after CLOV and stuff. I mean, listen, these people are very intelligent. The last thing they're going to do is put themselves in harm's way to investors for some type of class action lawsuit. So I wouldn't get your hopes up on trying to, not telling you not to, but I wouldn't get your hopes up on trying to go after them in one way, shape, or form. That's for sure. Shout out to the Waffle Maker real quick, man. Brian Sanders, Rick, Raj K, Cuckoo Bird, always in there. We appreciate you guys. Scott Richards, Andy Smith, Turts McGurts, man, dude who gave us Hut. Monk, of course, man. Nice to see you in here. We got this guy named Ganna saying go Ghost, man. That's my man right there. Very Disturbed, Rick, Big ol' Squirrel. Sean's in the building. Louie, Lindy, Steven. I mean, the list goes on. Alan. We appreciate all you guys, man. L Trains, of course, man. We're in a group chat together. It's always good to see your face in here. Zeke, in every single stream I've ever been in, man. Much love to him and the support he's always given us. Eric, man, we appreciate you in the building. JJ, of course. Man, list goes on, man. We appreciate all the support. If I missed anybody, man, I apologize. But we appreciate you coming in here. So as this show is always, man, it's no financial limits, but we also do have a football segment that we go into. Usually it's the first half with Coach, who's currently at the Niners game. For whatever reason, he's excited to watch his team get beat up in person. So we'll let him have that for now. But nonetheless, man, we usually have a half hour where we talk about stocks. CLOV obviously is the topic of conversation right now, based upon circumstances. I see it fit. But there are some sectors out there that I would be foolish to not bring up. We got the infrastructure deal coming in. I know that I made some plays on Blink a while back. Timing was pretty cool with that. I know that we've been.
Blink was killing it today.
You said one more time?
I said Blink was killing it today.
Yeah, Blink was killing it today. A lot of infrastructure deals too. I guess you can go into the whole EV sector itself was really doing well. Rivian's been murdering the game. A lot of people aren't really talking about it too much that I'm involved with, but I do have a couple people that invested in Rivian. They did something pretty cool, man. So when you reserved a car, I think it was like $1,000 deposit. They gave you access to the pre-IPO price of $74 a share, and I think it was up to, I want to say $10,000 worth was like their cap, which is pretty interesting, which could maybe be the reason why you see their price, per share steady increase. I think when you look at Tesla and the volatility that it's gone through recently, where are these people taking their cash? This is why Buffett always said it's a place where the wealth gets transferred from the impatient to the patient. I mean, it's a revolving door. I remember when NIO came out, but started getting some traction. Tesla took some downward pressure there. You got Fisker, you got Lucid. All of these EV sectors are kind of heating up at this point in time. And where are these resources coming from? In my opinion, a lot of these profit takers from Tesla end up rolling in these directions in a Rivian, in a Lucid Motors. So I kind of wanted to touch base on that and get your outlook on this, because this is something you and I haven't really spoke about. But one thing I've always noticed about this circulation, from SPACs to SPACs, you look at from EV sector to EV sector, you got the marijuana sector coming off right now. I know Tilray was ripping the last couple of days. I guess there's some talks about the...
Sorry, I've been going through this filing while you've been talking there. I've been listening, and I got to the use of the proceeds for this offering. So we gotta keep it real. We intend to use the net proceeds from this offering for working capital and general corporate purposes. As of the date of this prospectus, we cannot predict with certainty all of the particular uses for the proceeds to be received upon the completion of this offering, or the actual amounts that we will spend on the uses set forth above. As a result, our management will retain broad discretion over the allocation of the net proceeds from the offering. Pending their use, we intend to invest the net proceeds of this offering in short and intermediate term interest-bearing obligations, investment-grade instruments, certificates of deposit, or direct or guaranteed obligations of the U.S. government, subject to applicable regulatory restrictions.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever read a prospectus that didn't say for general purposes?
It was for...
I think that if there was going to be an
acquisition, I think if there was going to be an acquisition of some sort, it would say something different than this.
So in every initial offering I've ever heard, before it's official, I've never seen anything but general practice. I mean, I could be wrong, but usually that's what it says. 99.9% of the time. In fact, I can't remember a time in an initial public offering. Now, after the offering's closed, I've seen companies tell you what they're experiencing. But if you're making an acquisition and you're on the hush about it, last thing you want is competitors to know who you're going after, especially if you just broke the news.
Hold it up. Now when I was reading it, as I read it for myself for the first time as well, there's nothing...
In initial offerings, I don't really read too deep into the context of it, because I've seen it just so many times. Sometimes the offering doesn't even go through. You said one more time?
This is an initial offering. The initial one was back in January.
Not initial offering. Let me rephrase that. The announcement of the public offering, and this isn't official yet. They haven't officially gotten the approval and how many shares exactly and what price per share that the offering is. So this is like the initial public offering in regards to
$7.16 per share for 35 million shares.
Correct.
So, and then within 30 days, the underwriters can buy the 5.25 more million shares.
In addition to the 35 million, correct?
Yeah.
40 million total. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, we'll see. We will definitely see. I'm definitely curious. I'll tell you that much. Not a doubt in my mind that they're going to put the money to good use. But this is why I don't YOLO. This is why I literally diversify for that one reason and one reason alone, because you never know. You just never know. No one does until it's already there. It's like you look at a chart in hindsight, you can always tell where you should have bought and sold when you look at the chart after you've already done your you're selling and you're buying. But back to this investments. You look at the marijuana sector, right? And you're seeing Tilray, is one of the biggest winners of them. You look at the energy, the electric car sector, and you're looking at Lucid making a push. You're looking at Rivian making a push. Do you see the same thing that I see? I mean, do you notice that when one stock as popular as Tesla is getting slammed, let's just say a couple $100 per share, do you see that, and do you notice how a lot of those resources kind of get spread out over some of their, some of the same sector in a sense? Do you ever notice that? Is that something that you believe is to be true? Is that just not even close? What's your feelings on this?
What's happening with Tesla has nothing to do with the sector. It has to do with Elon and everything he's going on about, right? And then his brother selling, as opposed to the supply, the chip shortage that's affecting all of them, for example, right? That has nothing to do with what's happening with Tesla's price action, right? And they've been sued now by, I think it was JP Morgan is suing them for $162 million for stuff related to their warrants. Elon, in my opinion, is looking for any reason to sell, whether it's to end world hunger, whether it's to do a Twitter poll, whether it's to appease Bernie, he just wants to sell. And as you can see right from the filings, he already had the plan to sell, I believe, since September 14th, right? So it's almost like, I don't know what's going on there exactly, but it's apparent that he wants to sell the shares, right? And not enough to, I don't know, like, you gotta think, right? When he's selling his shares, right, he's no longer the Tesla shareholder of those. He now has $7 billion. I think that's how much he sold so far, $7 billion, right? So now he's just,
I mean, the man has 170 million shares of Tesla. This
is not an amount of money. Like, what can you do with $3 billion that you can't do with $2 billion? Do you know what I mean? So it's why sell this much? Why? So I think that's part of it, and obviously he's an eclectic billionaire, and Chamath, if you watch the All In pod, Chamath refers to him and Bezos as the two smartest guys on the planet, which I don't agree with. He's obviously basing that just off the wealth, but he's like, because Bezos typically sold, I think, $1 billion of Amazon a year, and then this year he sold over $6 billion, and now you have Musk selling all these billions as well. So, you know what I mean? Chamath's whole take on it was basically the smartest guys in the room are selling. And he's like, you could tell he was thinking. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, you better not fucking sell CLOV, because I thought about that when he was talking about it. But no, looks like he wants to buy more. So
the exact opposite, exactly. I mean, I just think of like the cause for it, right? Like, I mean, I know you owned some Tesla shares at one point. You was like, hey, dude, this is a good time for me to.
And then look what happened.
Right, and you even called it prior. You're like, dude.
Almost called it 9.
So, I mean, where are you going with your wealth? You're going to go to other sectors, of course. This is more my theory. It's like, yeah, I don't think the selling of the shares had anything to do with the sector. I think it was clear that Elon and his tweets and his polls that he was taking was definitely going to cause some friction on the price itself. But as a profit taker, where do you go? I mean, if you're involved and invested into Tesla, maybe that's a sector you like. So maybe you're looking at Rivian going public, brand new corporation going public. I could take some of my proceeds from Tesla real quick. I can get some shares for free on Rivian, and buy the dip if I have to, if it gets suppressed itself, which it has yet.
Almost just shy of 30x on Tesla in just over 3 years, and most of that will go into something similar.
Right.
And I expected to hold Tesla longer. I didn't expect it to go the way it did, and then with the split, and then back up, and you know what I mean. So that was all beautiful, but it's my long-term portfolio. Other than a couple benchmark stocks to kind of keep everything fluid, I guess you could say.
So
is usually just high risk, high reward, but starting off low. And I'm not an institution, I'm not getting in for the Series A, but for many of these, I'm getting in very early. And CLOV is looking very, very good for a 5-year hold, 8-year hold, right? Especially knowing that we're not expecting anything in the next year or two. And it's like I said a little bit ago on the show here is if you were holding CLOV and you knew that for minimum 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, and you didn't look at it for 2 years, today doesn't matter. You know what I mean? All these downgrades don't matter. Like, it's just noise. And
100% agree.
Look at it people look at this every single day the way I look at 25 different tickers a day for day trading. You know what I mean? And see them going up and down. That's how people look at CLOV, and I don't think that's
I think that's
the
the
correct
whole
outlook.
Yeah, I think that's the whole retail mentality, though. I mean, you saw a lot of things change during the pandemic. I mean, you've been trading prior to the pandemic. You know what it is. You know, you didn't see this kind of behavioral characteristics from retail the whole time you were trading. Not even close to that. It's been... You said what?
You're wearing home trading.
Exactly. So let's talk about the sports segment since you're wearing your Pats jersey and this is supposed to be the NFL. No financial limits. CLOV
5 minutes.
CLOV took all the shine. I'll make it quick for you then. So what we normally do is we'll go ahead and pick the game tonight for starters since you don't have too much time. So let's go ahead and get your outlook on it. This particular week.
On here, I'm not going to pull up names, but I can see somebody commenting on my Twitter now telling me that they are not offering anything. Stop spreading FUD. The offering is selling by current shareholders. It's not dilutive. Like, get off Twitter, you chump. It's 100% dilutive and offering from the company. Like, people commenting stuff like this is how things get messed up.
You know what the good news is? The good news is it doesn't change our investment strategy whatsoever, regardless of circumstances.
To see people thinking, like, I don't know where you're getting your information, but that's not what an offering by other share flag. Anyways, sorry, I just saw that right now.
You're good. So,
let's talk football.
Well, let's talk football. We got the Rams tonight, obviously, in LA, in the Niners Stadium, I should say.
He's playing. We should know by now.
One more time?
Is OBJ playing?
Yeah, he's playing.
Yes?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll double check, but I'm like 99.9% sure. Yeah, he's playing. So, what's your thought process on the game tonight? Who do you got? We got the spread, I believe it was 4.5 when we picked the games. I believe it's 3.5 now. Rams favored by 3.5. What's your outlook?
Who's Jimmy or Trey Lance?
Garoppolo, I believe. Garoppolo.
Garoppolo?
Yeah, we got
Are
Garoppolo.
you sure? Because I got Trey Lance at better odds to score a TD than him. I'd be odd if he wasn't starting.
There's no way.
No, I'm looking at it. Jimmy Garoppolo anytime TD is just to rush a TD in. But plus 1,100 and Trey Lance is plus 800.
The starting quarterback is going to be Garoppolo. He's starting tonight, so they might have some trick plays perhaps where he gets a nice little run or something. But the man threw 326 yards and had 2 tugs last week. I would be very, maybe they'll split some time a bit.
It's funny because I don't even like the Rams, but they are what they are, right? And they got that defense and look at coaches, beautiful. Look at all those L's. Jesus Christ. I just looked at the screen. My play on this would honestly be probably, because I don't like San Fran either. That's my problem. I don't like either of them. So you're making me pick a team I don't like to. I've seen both teams be shit and I've seen both teams be pretty good. So I'm going to go with Rams 3.5.
I got the Rams.
I think it literally might be just like a 28-24 game.
So I got the Rams tonight.
Maybe.
I think OBJ brings them some new life. I mean, I think if they would have lost Woods, they'd have been depressed coming into tonight.
You don't have that playbook yet.
You know what, though? We talked about this offline. I mean, here's the deal. I played wide receiver my whole life. And when I played on a new team and a new coach and look, man, I'm in the huddle. Tell me the route. All I need to know is my job. If I'm blocking, I'm blocking. If it's a run, tell me it's a run. If it's a pass and I'm running routes, I'm running routes. So it's too easy, for you to switch up the terminology. It's a streak, it's a seam, it's a dig, it's a post, it's a stop and go, it's an out and up. I mean, there's just so many routes that you could run. And the thing is when you got a savvy quarterback like Matt Stafford, He knows if you're playing me between the quarterback, he's going to throw it over the top. If you're playing beyond me, he's throwing a line drive over the middle, and I'm cutting my route short. So these are all things on where to put the ball. I don't think Baker Mayfield was very good at determining where to put the ball. I think that's one of Matt Stafford's specialties when he plays with people like Megatron, a.k.a. Calvin Johnson, and all the way down now to the Cooper Kupp. You look at Kupp and the way he's balling. This isn't just because they got the playbooks down, Pat. I mean, this is about running and getting open and finding holes in the zone.
Yeah, and I can't even pull up OBJ to get a touchdown. I was thinking about maybe doing that.
Oh, man, I hope he does. I got him in fantasy, and it's the only shot I have. On the screen, you can see, man, Coach went 1-6 last week, man. That's awful. And Al Trades, I know you got to go, so just jump off whenever you have to, man. I know you got to go.
Okay, yeah, no, I got to get going for sure.
I appreciate you. Appreciate you for stopping on as well, man. We'll do this more often. Maybe we'll get the trio on with Coach next week or so and get you on another guest spot, man. It was fun talking with you. As always, man, I'll talk to you offline.
You're right.
Appreciate you. All right. Give me just 1 second, guys, so I can get this squared up. Boop, boop. Oh, you guys got two of me now. Okay. Yeah, man, this is the first time I actually had the streaming platform myself this time around, which was pretty odd, I'll be honest with you. Shout out to Coach for always running the sticks, because this shit is a lot more difficult than it is, especially time management. So we got a little bit carried away, but there was a lot of good news and weird news about CLOV that we wanted to share. This is, as you guys can see, the Week 10 results. I wanted to make sure we didn't miss a beat. 1-6 Coach went last week. He's got a losing record, 36-42. I strongly advise that you listen to his picks each week. Pick the exact opposite, and you should be good to go. And I'm sitting here at 3-3, nothing to brag home to moms about, but I am above 500, sitting at 41-34. And remember, this is with spreads. So it is a little bit more difficult, especially considering circumstances. You can see here I got the Rams -4.5. Had we chose that game tonight, I'd only have to give 3.5 points. So the lines change throughout the week, which does make it a little bit of a disadvantage that we're picking on a Monday night for the next week's workload. So, carry that with a grain of salt when you look at our record here. But that's the lineup we got now. I wanted to go ahead and show you guys the overall picks. Not overall picks, but the picks that we picked ourselves, just to kind of give you guys the heads up. We picked offline. Starting off with Thursday Night Football next week, I do have the Patriots -6.5 against the Falcons. I got to be honest with you, man. I know Baker Mayfield didn't play, but after an impressive win the Browns had the week prior, to get mollywopped like they did against the Patriots was very impressive. This quarterback is definitely proven to be someone that could potentially be one to watch for, man. Either the Patriots know how to find the right QBs, or they're the way they operate, man. Do your job is the mantra there. So this guy's got it going on, man. I'm curious to see what the Patriots are gonna do towards the end of the season, because when the Bucs won the Super Bowl, a lot of people had to say it was all Tom Brady. But clearly, I think Coach Belichick got him to become that Tom Brady, and he took it another step. So I got the Patriots -6.5. I think they beat the Falcons by at least one touchdown or more. Falcons just seem to find ways to lose, and they just got destroyed last week, so much so that they pulled their starters, I think, in the third quarter. So there's that. I also picked the Saints and the Eagles game. I got the Eagles giving 1.5 points to the Saints. I've also took the Jets plus 3.5 points against the Dolphins. Listen, Sean, I know you're probably watching. Your Dolphins can still win by a field goal. You're happy, I'm happy. I got 3.5 points in the Jets. We got Washington at the Panthers. This is the first game that Coach chose. He's got the Panthers -2.5 points against the Washington football team. He's also followed up his pick with the Bills, one of his favorite teams. He thinks the Bills handle business against the Colts at home. He has them winning by 6.5 or more, so a touchdown or higher. Back to one of my picks, I got the Lions, and I'm getting 9.5 points against the Browns, who just got destroyed by the Patriots. Look, Mayfield might play that game. Again, this is one of those things where if Mayfield plays, maybe something changes in the pick that I would choose. So, watch these games closely as they get closer to kickoff. Things do change. But I still like the Lions plus 9.5. They tied the Steelers this week, which I'm embarrassed to say, but it happened. No Ben Roethlisberger. Definitely didn't help us in a couple fumbles in OT when we would have been in field goal range to win it all. So that happened. 49ers minus 5.5. Coach has them minus 5.5 against the Jaguars. Obviously, they kick off here in just a few moments against the Rams. Regardless of circumstances, he definitely likes the Niners versus the Jags minus 5.5 points. Towards the second half of the day, we got the Titans. He's chose the Titans at home to beat the Texans by 10 plus points, 10.5 points. Looks like we also got Packers. I'm choosing the Packers to win by a field goal or more against the Vikings. Ravens minus 6.5 against the Bears, so they'll be on the road. That's one of Coach's picks. We got the Raiders, another one of Coach's picks. He's getting the 1.5 points against the Bengals. And then I'm picking the Cardinals, man. I know it's a divisional road game against the Seahawks. I know it was Russell's first game back, but against the Packers, they couldn't do anything. Their first shutout in ages. And I think that the Cardinals have just a solid defense. I think even Von Miller might be active this game. With their front line, I don't see how the Cardinals can really do much. The Seahawks can do much against that D. So I think the Cardinals still beat the Seahawks. I also noticed that Coach has the Cowboys plus 2.5 points against the Chiefs. And I kind of like that pick as well. I think the Cowboys can win that game outright, although it is in Arrowhead, and we'll see the weather come game time. And then, of course, I picked the Steelers. Anytime my Steelers are getting points, I'm picking them. I'm biased, so be careful with that one. But we're playing the Chargers in LA, so it should be a good game. I do see we got quite a few people still on live, man. I want to pay attention to the chat real quick, man. If you guys got any questions, please make sure to bring it up. Turts McGurts, man, it's nice to see you on here. I appreciate the love. Peter Micus, Marcus Wheaton, man. Got my boy M Money in the building. Number 11 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know Chase Claypool tried to steal his look. He's rocking 11 in the dreads. Also, not to be confused with M Money himself. My man is a beast, man. On a new team, you feel like you got to earn the trust of your new teammates, so there's definitely some added pressure. I would assume you're talking about OBJ. I agree with that to the fullest. I think OBJ just needs to go up with two hands, man. It seems like he's always trying to put one up there and make those spectacular catches. But you know what it's like, M Money, as a receiver, man. You got to look at the way the defender's playing you. And Matt Stafford's a savvy vet, man. He can give some looks to OBJ, not a problem at all. Their run game's on point, so they shouldn't be, one-dimensional. And I think that opens up the pass game for sure, man. What's up, Pete? I see you say what's up, man. Nice to see you on here. Turts McGurts. Who else? We got Zeke, man. Thanks for the talk, Ghost and Al. Appreciate you both a shit ton. Gonna head out, though. Let's see what time brings. Long. Not leaving CLOV, man. I like to hear that, man. Listen, man, we're in this together, man. There's a lot of you guys that are definitely feeling the pressure of where CLOV is at this point in time, and it's definitely frustrating by all means to see your investment go down if you were one that got it in the high end. And shit, at this point, man, in the sixes for the first time in a really long time, it really doesn't matter when you got it. You're probably down at this point in time. But with every investment, there's the risks. There's the risk versus reward, and you got to just make that decision based upon the information that you go through yourself personally. We might have a lot of insight for you guys, but we're really just giving you our opinions at the end of the day. We have no affiliation to Clover whatsoever. So there's really only speculation on our behalf as well on what's to possibly come in the future. Would have been cool if he came to us, the Packers. Yeah, man, I felt like you guys were looking for a wide receiver as well. Green Bay is definitely looking sharp on D, man. I didn't see this coming. Their defense is something else. I mean, they're dominating from a defensive standpoint, and they're losing DBs left and right, man. I don't even know how they're still maintaining this, but the Packers are definitely a force to reckon. I think their 8-2 record proves that. That's for sure. Just scrolling through the chat right now to make sure I didn't miss anybody, man. If you guys got any questions or anything whatsoever, let me know, please, man. Hit me up in the chat. I know I always talk about a lot of people DMing me. I don't mind the DMs. Trust me when I tell you. Even when they're super, super, like, frustrating or upset. Yeah, man, I like positive energy. I can't flex. I think positivity goes a long way in this world. And yeah, of course, the last thing I want to hear is all these negative things. But look, man, I chose to be in front and talk about CLOV. So I expect you guys, when CLOV is not doing so hot, I expect you guys to holler at me. But I also expect the same when we start booming. I expect y'all to say, man, Ghost was right all along. So, you take the good with the bad, but my investment is holding strong, and in all honesty, I'm probably going to accumulate some more tomorrow, because if anytime I get a chance to get a stock that's dropped 10% in the aftermarket for just something as simple as an offering. I mean, we just saw it with HUT. You saw the offering with HUT, and if you didn't see it, look up the ticker HUT. It's a mining company in digital currency, Bitcoin to be exact. There was an offering. The price tanked $2-3 a share, if I'm not mistaken. Could be exaggerating, but it tanked at least 10%. And I watched it kind of accumulate a little bit and kind of find its little zone, and I added in and wrote it up a little bit more and left a happy camper. So, remember, offerings not always end bad. So be careful. Don't make any rash decisions. Just make the decisions based upon what you feel is appropriate for your investment strategy. Can't express it enough. Don't buy the dip if you're not prepared to feel downward pressure. Don't YOLO, because there's nothing that's ever for certain. Always diversify. That's what I do. I'm talking to myself here. Remember, no financial advice. Check the chat one more time before we head off. So the waffle maker EE's been quiet, it seems. Yeah, you know what's funny? I'm not even going to lie to you. I actually did look at that individual's post, and she had one like 5 hours ago when I looked, which was probably a couple hours ago, to kind of see what would be said. But yeah, it was awfully quiet. It was awfully quiet. She called us a $2 Chuck. She knows who she is. She's probably watching us now, hating on us. But hey, man, I don't have any disrespect or hate towards anybody. We all have different strategies, right? I mean, Coach and myself, we both played the SPY. I had calls, he had puts. We both made money. There's opportunity in this industry. You just got to know what you're doing, and you got to know what you're playing, and you got to know why you're playing it. It's just that simple. Scott Richards, man, shout out to Scott Richards. I have some faith in this offering. I feel like if other hedgies knew about the offering, they would have given much higher. PTs. Yeah, so sometimes, I mean, we've seen some things like that occur for sure. I still trip out on credit, Credit Suisse or Suzy, however you say this, credit. I still trip out that they gave a price target, not after second quarter earnings, completely silent, but then right before third quarter earnings, and then another price target shortly after their conference. There's always some things that happen that just kind of bug you out, man. Shout out to Michelle. Good evening. Good evening, Michelle. It's been a while since we've seen you on here. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate you to the fullest. Listen, everybody, I want to watch this Monday night game. I got a lot of fantasy high hopes. I got a long shot, man. I had Tyreek Hill, but he had Mahomes yesterday. Started off great. The first 2 touchdowns were to Reek Holmes. Were to Reek from Holmes. I thought it was looking like it was going to be one of them vintage games, but he then decided to find everyone else and their mom. So I'm sitting here with a small lead, but I'm going up against Cooper Kupp and Eli Mitchell. So it's looking pretty much like a loss unless OBJ does one of his infamous, giant one-hand catches on a Monday night, I think it was, that put him on the map. So we'll see what happens, man. Marcus Weed, man, keep up the good work, Ghost. This podcast is dope. Much love. I'll hit you later 100%. We'll talk offline, man. It's always much love speaking with you, Marcus, man. You the champ, man. We appreciate you to the fullest, man. I can't wait to tell some of your stories. I've been holding back on so many of your stories in high hopes that one day, M Money, I know he's a busy man, but one of these days he'll pop on for a couple minutes and say what's up, even if it's quick, because he's got some cool stories, man. He played in the huddle with AB. He's caught touchdown passes from Big Ben. In fact, one of his, I won't even say, man. He's got a lot of fun stories, man, inside the huddle, and a lot of great inspirational stories outside of the huddle. And seeing that our show is No Financial Limits, I think he'd be a perfect candidate to shed some light on some of the moves he makes in the real estate industry and even in the stock market, man. Well, shit, I remember when the pandemic first started, man, we made a killing off DraftKings together, man. So it's much love, man. And I know you're busy, so no obligation here, man. Just much love, man. I'll talk to you offline for sure. Peter Mikas, man, enjoy Monday Night Football as well, man. I appreciate the love. And yeah, man, we'll always, give you our input on everything that we know, man, on everything that we see and on everything that we feel. Nothing's really changed with the group at the core. We're still holding strong, and we're still ecstatic that the long haul for this corporation in Clover Medical Health should be pretty satisfying. So, look, if you don't need the capital and you don't need the resources right this moment in time, and you don't see another investment that's worthy of your financial resources being shifted to, be careful with the selling and the buying because it gives you wash sales. You end up putting yourself in a predicament. You just want to be very careful with whatever you're doing. If you want to add to the collection, really do your due diligence and determine how much you want to add. And if it makes sense to add right this moment in time, or if you want to wait till things mellow out. Ask yourself, if this dips to $5, what am I going to do? Ask yourself, if it hits $12 in a month from now, what am I going to do? Have these questions answered and have yourself a plan. That way nothing knocks you off your high horse on a day where you see a 7-8% jump with the 10% down in the aftermarket. It'll definitely help you out. I see a few people left, man. If you guys got any questions, let me know. Let me know if you got any questions. If not, as always, man, it was a pleasure. This was my first time streaming the No Financial Limits live. It was kind of cool, man, to see a different scene. I get tired of seeing, Coach, man, and his talking shit about the Steelers every time he gets a chance to, and how good his Niners are, and the Ravens this and that, and I get tired of hearing this dude's mouth. So it was real refreshing to hear Al Trades on the show, and just to get a break from this dude, Coach, man. God, I don't even know how he coaches football teams out here in real life, man. They must just get sick to their stomach, man. I can't even say that shit with a straight face. I miss you, Coach. I hope you got to tune in a little bit at this game of yours, man. Much love, man. I can't wait for next week for you to run this shit, because it's definitely a lot easier to be the special guest and sit back. Although we co-hosted, man, I still feel like a special guest every single day. I'm privy to be on your show in the AMs, and then our show in the PMs on Monday nights, because, Coach, you were the first person that reached out to me from one of my Reddit posts, man, in regards to getting on these YouTube channels. So I appreciate you for reaching out, man. It's been so fun. We'll continue to do this as y'all continue to request, man. Much love on all y'all. Thoughts on DraftKings, says JJ. Great. You know what? I'll touch base on DraftKings. I think it's at 39 and some change right now. Nothing's really changed fundamentally, JJ, for me. I'm actually still holding a lot of shares. It was a little bit easier for me. I bought in at 18. I shaved on the way up, actually. So I'm rocking with free shares, quite a lot of free shares, because it hit 75 at one point. So I pretty much 4x'd my money. My boy actually just dropped a pretty large chunk of change into DraftKings, and he's been texting me nonstop since he's done it. Man, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I did this and I did that. And I'm like, nah, man, it's not that. You just got to slowly move into things, because you just never know when things tend to reverse course. And I know that fear of missing out sits in play, where you feel like, yo, I got to get all my money in now before it's too late. Man, it's the same thing with SEAH. Sierra, Echo, Alpha, Henry. SEAH. I've been screaming at the rooftops. This is DraftKings 2.0. This is a SPAC that will be reversing with Betway. And when that SPAC converts, which we can get news any week now, any day now, it's going to be a big pop on this stock. And we could see similar moves that we saw in DraftKings, where it was $18 the second that ticker switched to DKNG. I know I'm getting off track here, JJ, but I'll definitely tell you my thoughts on DraftKings here shortly. Make sure y'all look into SEAH. I've been saying it since it was in the 10s. I think it broke 1250 at some point today. I haven't even looked after hours, but I've been accumulating on every dip that it's had. And to be honest with you, the last few days, it's been riding pretty hot. So back to DraftKings. $39. I don't know when you bought in or when you started your position. But my boy, I'm going to give you an example of my boy. My boy bought in at $51, and he put a pretty big chunk of change into it. And we spoke today, and he's like, what do I do? What do I do? And I said, man, how much is what's your median? And he told me the amount of shares he had at 51 and some change, or 50 and some change, pretty much 51. And I said, well, if you invest 1/3 of what you've already invested, and you put an extra oomph into it, for easy math purposes, let's just say he invested 30 grand. I tell him, hey, dude, put another 10 grand into it. And at that point in time, he would lower his median to $46 or whatever the math was. That's a big difference. As it sits at 39, you can see, look, DraftKings, if there's one thing that I can tell you that I've seen, it's not to say history will repeat itself, so don't get it twisted. But they always have news. They always have catalysts. There's always days where this stock pops, and usually it pops for a few days consecutively, right? I remember when they announced that Michael Jordan, was going to be on the board of directors. Took a few days for the streets to hear, and it just raised. Every time, ESPN, it raised. I mean, there's a lot of things that DraftKings does from a business standpoint that works to their favor. And I think right now you're seeing a lot of downward pressure on DraftKings. A lot. Is it over? Is it going to continue to drip down? No, I couldn't tell you. But this is just going back to the way I say I like to invest. I diversify, and I little by little acquire a company that I like. So if I go, hey, I like DraftKings, I want to put 50 grand into DraftKings, I'm not putting 50 grand in one day. I'm putting 5 grand in on 10 separate occasions. Seriously. Because that way I'm always putting myself in a good position. If it takes off when I only got 5 grand in it, so be it. I'll double my money. I'll cash out the 5 grand and I'll let that 5 grand roll and I'll catch it back on the flip side. When it hits 75, trust me, I never thought I'd see the 39 days again. So remember that, DraftKings, look at their chart. They've gone from 18 to 50 to 30 to 75 to 39. They're as volatile as it gets for a company that's been publicly traded for as long as they've been publicly traded. Look at their fundamentals. Their earnings, they barely lowered their guidance. It's still in the $1.4 billion range, very similar to CLOV. I think that they've made a lot of acquisitions. I think that they've made a lot of partnerships to where they're going to be very successful because these 10-year agreements that they do with ESPN, for example, this helps them not the same year they make the partnership. They got to pay for that. But it's like free marketing over time because now instead of having to pay for all these ads to get your exposure and your brand recognition, it's on every single TV already. And so this should help them lower their output. This way they could actually become profitable. Remember, 2023 is when they said in their prospect, in their I think it was 2023, they said that's when they would be profitable. I think when that happens, you're going to see a really big increase in an already popping stock. That's my outlook. Short-term volatility, long-term, I love it. Not as much as an Apple, not as much as Amazon, maybe not as much as a Facebook or one of the FANG stocks. But long-term, I still love it. I mean, man, they're in 13 states if I'm not mistaken. That's 37 states to go. They're not even in yet. Plus international. And remember this. Every 4 years, states are going to be added to the ballot. We're already in a year and a half or so with Biden. So it seems like a long time away, but 2.5 years from now, trust me, this pandemic is going to bring states to legalize marijuana and legalize sports betting. Why? Two of the most highest revenue that they can bring in instantly, that they can tax on, that would help dig them out of their hole in their respective economy, per se. I know I worded that pretty funny, but bottom line is there will be states that will be adding online sports betting. DraftKings is in a position that if a pandemic hits or if it's all remote all over again because there's another epidemic that happens, a pandemic that has an epicenter somewhere in the States and they got to shut down again, they'll still be okay. And I think that's why I liked the investment originally. The states on the ballot that were coming in and the fact that online sports betting is here to stay. That's my outlook. Accumulating SCAH since you mentioned it in the 10s. I love it, man. Good luck to you, JJ. I definitely love to hear that. Very disturbed, man. Nice to see you, man. Pleasure to have you guys on. It looks like that's all the questions I got for tonight, man. Again, I just want to say thank you so much, you guys, for tuning in. It's so much more. It's such a pleasure when you got a decent sized audience because you don't feel like you're really in your office just talking to a screen. So I appreciate having you guys on here, man. You guys asked for it on Coach's show. I'll never forget that, man. And it's been cool, man. It's something I look forward to every single week. I appreciate it. I genuinely appreciate it. I'm not monetized. I don't want any tips, nothing like that, man. I'm having a good time. I make a really good living. I'm blessed to say. I also love the stock industry, and I've been doing very well in the stock industry. So this is just for fun. So just tune in to have some good times and have some fun. Other than that, man, I appreciate all of y'all, my new subscribers that came in today. Much love. Enjoy Monday night, and we'll see you next week on Coach's channel because I ain't doing this 2 weeks in a row. Take care. Nice to see y'all.